how's it going? Welcome into it. Yeah, hour number 2, Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. So great to have you with us here. 1480 on the AM dial, 99.7 HD4 on the FM dial. If you want to listen on the smart radio, you can listen to us in high definition, high quality radio broadcasting. Plus our friends out in Garden City, Kansas on KIUL, the Big Talker out there as well. So wonderful to have you with us. Happy Saturday. It's going to be a little bit warmer. The cold front apparently done. Global warming happening the next few days across Kansas. By next week, we're going to get up into the 60s and 70s like all week long. Thank you, February. We appreciate that. 316-721-8255 on the Maximum Outdoor Equipment hotlines. I want to hear from you today on all the issues that we've talked about. Governor Kelly doing her Landon lecture at K-State yesterday afternoon, talking about working across the aisle, happy-go-lucky, if we could just have lack of partisanship and we could just do things, our way. If you just come on board with our way, then we could totally have just harmonious ways. If you just do what we want to do, we don't need to find common ground or find happy medium. You just need to do what we want you to do, and therefore we would see middle-of-the-road harmonious movements. That's kind of what we're seeing from the Governor Kelly administration and Democrats abroad, really, just in the state of Kansas and nationwide. Fascinating stuff. Thanks again to Brenda Lindbergh coming on the program. I was not aware of that bill or the case of kids being vaccinated or getting shots or getting type of medications or hormone blockers or whatever. We hear about these things, and we're like, yeah, that can't happen in Kansas. It's Kansas, for crying out loud. No. Seems to be happening. So I'm glad they're working on a bill. We'll get her on or somebody else on as well to talk about that bill as it moves closer to hopefully getting to the governor's desk to prevent doctors and the schools from just injecting our kids with things without parental consent. Blows my mind how that's even allowed. What about the privacy of the children? Really? They're kids. They don't get to run their entire life. I tell little voice of reason. She's 9. She's in 4th grade. And I tell her, because she wants a phone. All of her friends have a phone, and I've not gotten her a phone yet. And I will. She's 9 years old. What the hell does she need a phone for? Does not need a phone. I'm not giving her a phone. And she wants one because her friends have one. And I say, when you start working in high school and start making some money, then you can afford a phone. Or when you start, or maybe when you're in high school and you start doing more activities, I'll get you a phone, but it's going to be limited text messages, and it's going to be the bare minimum plan. And if you want more stuff, then you can pay for it. Your privacy means that when you are off on your own doing your own thing, then you can do whatever you want to with your own privacy, and no one's controlling you. But at the same time, when you're in this house, then you're on mom and dad's rules, and the privacy is whether you get to keep the door on your bedroom or not because of how you're acting. And no, sorry, you don't get free reign to do whatever you want to, which is what apparently the media and the left side of the aisle thinks is acceptable in today's times. Well, they feel this way. I don't care how they feel. They're a child. They don't know what they want. They still think they're going to be astronauts and ballet dancers when they grow up, which my daughter is in ballet, and I hope to God that she becomes an astronaut or a ballet dancer because the sky is the limit, but that's what they want to be right now. They want to. I remember as a kid, I wanted to be. My cousin, actually, he was the one that wanted to be a NASCAR driver and a farmer. And you know what? Obviously didn't happen, but good for you. The sky's the limit, but let's put things into perspective here on how you actually can achieve those jobs. Or, those are just pipe dreams of children who want to still ride unicorns across the sky. And if you want to do that, then you need to take a lot of melatonin to get some of those dreams going in your sleep. Just throwing that out there. All right, bottom of the hour, we have Dalton Glasscock, city council member for the city of Wichita. We'll have him on to get some city updates on what's going on. But obviously, the Second Amendment gun issues back in the news recently after the shooting that happened with the Kansas City Chiefs and their parade up in Kansas City a few days ago. That investigation's still ongoing. And, of course, what happens from the other side of the aisle, we hear the Biden administration, even Governor Kelly during her speech yesterday, Democrats saying, well, it's time for us to do those common sense gun reforms. Time for us to start taking those guns away, because how in the world could we have a shooting in a city, that all the way, by the way, has gun restrictions already within city limits, and somehow miraculously they were able to get a gun in those city limits during a parade and have a shooting where at least one individual dead, like 22 injured, and thankfully most of the children that were injured during that incident are recovering and will recover. To talk about some of that, plus what's going on here in the state, because we are working on the pro-Second Amendment issues, making us a safer state because of well-trained, well-understood firearm owners across the state of Kansas. As you know, being on the board with this great organization, the Kansas State Rifle Association, heavily involved in what's going on in our legislature and what's happening. So to talk about some of that and more here on the program, he's the executive director for the Kansas State Rifle Association. Happy to have back on the program Mr. Mariah Day. Mariah, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Hey, Andy, appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, so good to chat with you, and welcome aboard. I'm sure you've seen all of these statements from the Biden admin, from Governor Kelly, all of these, even Jerry Moran, unfortunately, was like, oh, we just need to curb gun crime and violence and crime rates and stuff, which was kind of a very generalized kind of statement on this issue. But of course, gun control back on the main front stage, isn't it?
It seems like it always is after a tragedy, and it's unfortunate because it takes the focus off of the folks that are, suffering in these situations. And it's really unfortunate because it takes the focus off of that and puts it on whatever agenda the left is trying to accomplish here. And unfortunately, they'll use any opportunity, any excuse to push this type of agenda. The sad thing is this agenda they're trying to push would limit the ability of law-abiding, responsible individuals to defend themselves, while doing absolutely nothing to prevent violent criminals from, carrying out their violent agenda. So it's really unfortunate. It's really sad to see politicians taking advantage of a tragedy to try to limit the rights of folks to be able to defend themselves. And obviously, we're going to keep fighting back.
Yeah. Obviously, I mean, this happened in Kansas City, so kind of a unique take on this one because people in the area, if they're in Kansas City, they might go for this type of agenda. But it happened, obviously with a state of Kansas and a state of Missouri, both states relatively favorable to the Second Amendment. So outside of maybe those elected officials within city limits of Kansas City, that agenda is not going to go very far on a statewide level, though, is it?
That's correct. And I've, seen some headlines, thankfully seeing that the Missouri legislature, for instance, is pushing back against efforts to institute any type of gun control. It's good to see legislators actually taking a step back and looking at things more logically rather than having a knee-jerk reaction to a situation and trying to institute something that would do the exact opposite of what needs to happen. Obviously, what needs to happen in situations is to effectively prosecute those criminal elements who are committing these crimes. But at the same time, we need to allow law-abiding, responsible firearm owners to defend themselves and their families. Because this situation, as you said, details are still coming out. There's an active investigation underway, and I don't want to comment on any of that. But what we did see is you have upwards of 900 law enforcement officers, many very well-trained heroes in uniform who are willing and actively risking their lives every single day for the people around them. And these folks ran in immediately to try to head off the situation and protect as many lives as possible. But it's just not even possible with upwards of 900 officers close to that proximity to respond immediately to the point where there were no injuries or casualties. And so it's just impossible to rely on someone else for your own self-defense 100% of the time. And you kind of have to take personal responsibility for that and realize we do live in a society that there are dangers around us. And you have to take that personal responsibility and say, hey, I'm going to defend myself and my loved ones as much as I'm able to.
Yeah, what a concept. And we kind of saw that with the shooting in Kansas City with the two or three individuals that ended up tackling the shooters, even though they didn't have firearms. They took the initiative and did that, or else things could have ended a lot worse. We look at the case that the shooting from Joel Osteen's church down in Texas just a couple of weeks ago as well, where they weren't able to actually harm anybody because the security that had firearms were able to shoot them and take the bad guy out before any damage was done.
Right.
Prime example of good guys stopping bad guys with guns. What a concept, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It happens way more than a lot of folks realize, I think. There's some statistics out there that show that the number of defensive firearm uses, whether a firearm was actually fired or not in the situation, far outweighs the number of offensive uses, where a criminal, for instance, is using it to injure someone. So it's just ridiculous, the move to limit access and training for firearms when there are so many examples of effective defensive uses of firearms.
Yeah, and of course, like you said, we don't hear about a lot of these while they happen more often than we're aware of because the media doesn't like to talk about them because that reinforces the agenda of maybe I should actually take matters in my hands and actually protect myself when that time, unfortunately, may arrive in our own personal life. Let's talk about some issues going on in the state of Kansas here. Obviously, we've talked to some of the legislators with Stephen Owens and Rebecca Schmoy, state representatives that have put up the constitutional amendment in the state legislature to help strengthen our Second Amendment in the state. Have you heard any movement where that's going, and how optimistic are we that that's going to happen on the ballot this year, do you think?
Sure. Yeah, it's, and I've mentioned this to others before, that, I gave up a long time ago on, basically trying to figure out what the percentage likelihood of something passing through the legislature is, because that's pretty much an impossible thing to predict. But, obviously we're still working really hard on this issue. We've got the House concurrent resolution, which is 50-20 in the House. They have 72 co-sponsors. I'm very thankful for all of those legislators who stepped up to take a leadership role in that. So that's obviously a very good number to lead with on that. We've already had the hearing in House Committee, in the Senate, SDR 1618 in the Senate. That currently has 23 co-sponsors. It was just introduced by Senator J.R. Clays on our behalf, and has the same language as the House version. So working it simultaneously in both chambers. Looking forward to getting a hearing on that and seeing where this goes in the legislature. Obviously the biggest hurdle is just getting legislators to actively take a stand on this and push this through to protect the rights of Kansas firearm owners.
Yeah.
And obviously that may be a little challenging at a time when there's a tragedy that the other side is trying to take advantage of. But we hope that legislators have enough backbone to do it. If we can get it to the ballot, I am extremely confident we can get it passed on the ballot because obviously Kansas voters are very, very much in favor of this kind of constitutional amendment.
Yeah. Even though it may not be the most hot topic for the pro-gun agenda right now because of the shooting, at the same time it is an election season, and a lot of those Republican legislators in Topeka are very self-conscious of their rating with the National Rifle Association and with us with the Kansas Rifle Association. So it's an election year. So even if they would be usually waffling on an issue like this after an incident like that, at the same time they want to make sure they get that rating and endorsement from us going into elections, which is kind of hilarious. But let's talk about the organization for a moment itself. If people want to become members, I know that obviously they can, but even outside of that, how is the Gadsden flag license plate going for us? Because I know that started just about a year or so ago. It sounds like it's going well, but I got to tell you, driving down the street all over the state of Kansas, I'm seeing more and more people having this "Don't Tread on Me" Gadsden flag on their car.
Oh, it's amazing. I personally have very much enjoying seeing those on the roads. As we drive down the road, here in Kansas, those Gadsden plates have been an enormous thing for our organization. I think there's a lot of Kansans who really enjoy, having that message of freedom on the back of their car. It's really cool to watch, folks that have no idea what the Kansas State Rifle Association is. They don't realize we've existed since 1928. They don't know that we're the ones in Topeka day in and day out fighting for the Second Amendment. There's other organizations that have bigger names that people, know about more. They have bigger presence across social media or whatever. They end up being the bad guys on media a lot of times. But we're the ones they're fighting day in and day out, and people don't necessarily even know we exist as an organization. But when they see that Gadsden flag, "Don't tread on me," bright yellow license plate, they're like, that's my message of freedom. That's something that I want to display on my vehicle, and it's really cool just to see how popular those have been. In 2023, we saw 3,748, I believe, is the number of plates sold or renewed in 2023, which is an absolutely amazing number. Yeah. It's only been around since early 2022, so a lot of folks hadn't even seen it until 2023. once they saw it, they kind of snapped them up, and they've been flying off the shelves like hotcakes. It's really cool because not only do they get to promote that message of freedom, but every plate sold helps fund the Kansas State Rifle Association's efforts. The KSRA gets $25 from every plate sold, so that helps us keep our doors open, promote firearm training and responsibility. It helps us just promote a culture of firearm safety in our state, and just overall increase our firearm culture here, which is an absolutely amazing thing.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. Yeah, I love it. And especially with the license plate debacle that we had just a few months ago with our ridiculous generic ones that we're going to see in the state. I think a lot of people are going to be looking for alternatives. And like you said, it's a great message that we can send with it, and it helps the organization with the Kansas State Rifle Association. For those, whether they're members or not, you can support the organization that helps support issues and things going on in Topeka, getting kids active, doing some training, getting you self-aware on stuff that's going on with the Second Amendment issues across the state of Kansas. You can find more information on all that at kansasrifle.org. We do have a little bit of a tease. We do have our annual convention coming up here in a few months as well. Not a lot of details coming out yet. We'll have some more on that soon, but we're out of time, my friend. It's Mariah Day, Executive Director for the Kansas State Rifle Association. Keep up this fight, brother. Let's keep doing this. It's going to be a great year. I am optimistic about it, and I'm glad we're focused on some two-way issues. Let's do it again soon.
Sounds great. Appreciate it, Andy. Have a great day.
Hey, always a pleasure. There it is. Executive Director for the Kansas State Rifle Association, Mariah Day. Again, kansasrifle.org. If you want more information to become a member, see some of the events going on, or when you renew your license plates, just ask for that Gadsden flag, that Don't Tread on Me license plate in the state of Kansas. Lets you express yourself a little bit and allows the Kansas State Rifle Association have some great opportunity to support things going on in the state. Got to take a break. Right around the corner here on Kansas Talk, Wichita's Big Talker, KQAM. Stay here.